Well, I have a bit of a dangerous mess on my hands here. We had a bit of a windstorm last night. Not sure how well you can see on the camera, but the top of this big spruce tree broke out, maybe 40 feet up off the ground, and it's wedged in between the single alder tree that is dead, mostly dead. It's rotten at the bottom. And it's split that forked alder tree. I'm surprised that side didn't fall the rest of the way down. The top of the tree's stuck in there, and it's broken off. Yeah, about 40 feet up right there. That sucks. Anything that I leave parked in this parking area right here is at risk. If the top of that tree comes down the rest of the way, it's definitely going to hit something. And I've been leaving my trailers and my tractor in here. I'm gonna have to figure out how to take this down because I can't use this spot. My shop's at risk and this parking area is not usable anymore. So this is gonna be one of those things that I gotta be slow and meticulous about, because if I cut the wrong thing, other things are gonna fall. I've spent about 20 minutes contemplating things out here, and I think I see the order in which things need to happen. So I think the least predictable of this mess here are the pieces of this alder tree. The tops could come out of these at any time. If I'm cutting the bottoms, this could barber chair. This is dangerous. And so I think I want to get those on the ground first. The top of this spruce tree is really tangled up in these limbs over here, and so I don't think it's going to fall down on its own, but in any case, I don't need to be working under here right now anyway. So to me, the top of the tree that broke and caused all this is actually the most predictable part of this. It's these two alder trees that I really want to get down. So those things are rotten enough at the base that I may be able to just pull them down with a winch. I really don't want to be in there with a chainsaw because it's kind of hard to predict how all these limbs and everything are going to fly, and the tops of those are rotten. They could come down while I'm cutting. I really don't like that. So I think what I'm going to do is get a winch line on that one that's already leaning and broken and see if I can pull on it to just get it to come down. Now I have gone over and talked to the neighbor and got her permission to work on her side of the fence, because the property line is actually those trees right there. It's not the fence. So get some rigging done and see how this unfolds. Okay, I got a line coming from my truck over to a block in that tree, which comes back to that alder tree, which pulls it down in the direction that it's already leaning. See if I've got enough oomph with my truck without anchoring it to anything. I'm going to back up and take up some of the slack out of these lines. Give me a little more distance in case that other tree comes down. Say step one is done. That worked to perfection. As I could kind of see, the bottom of that alder tree was super rotten, so it didn't take a big pull with my truck. I didn't need to anchor it to anything, and I was able to finish pulling that over. So that's one bit of potential energy that I don't have to contend with anymore. Let's get a better look at this rigging from this side. So this will be pull number 2. This is the one we just pulled down right here. Still worried about that one. It actually wants to fall this direction, which is good, because this is a nice open area. It's not going to smash my fence or my shop or anything. The one we're going to pull on now is the top of the spruce tree. It goes there. So what I have is a line going to that tree right there, and it's rigged up to a block to that fir tree right there, and then it goes back to my truck over there. So as I pull, we're going to be taking the top of this tree and basically sliding it this direction and pulling it that way as well. And I think that combined motion will pull the where it's broken off out of the top of that tree, and I'll be pulling away from my shop out into this open area. Is it gonna work? I don't know. Well, it's a new day. I'm not sure how well the camera angle showed that, but basically what happened was I almost stalled out my winch pulling on that, and the top of the tree is still connected with some pieces of bark and things like that, and I essentially lifted the whole tree up, pointing at my block until the winch line broke. And that's an old synthetic line. I think that one's about 5 years old, and I replaced that one preemptively 5 years ago and saved the old one. So I spooled the old one on there, but I'm not sure it's in a whole lot better shape. I do have a new winch line coming, so yeah, I'm gonna finish rigging this thing up, and hopefully this works. What'll happen here is I'm gonna pull this top of this tree and sweep it that direction, and it'll go about 45 degrees before it hits that fir tree that's back in there. And even if it does hit that fir tree, that's not the end of the world, because I've got so much extra tree out there. It's actually got a lot of leverage. I may be able to, you know, twist it and just kind of peel this thing away from the trunk right there. I'm not really sure. I will probably stop a little earlier before the winch is really getting bogged down. I had plenty of warning signs. I should have probably stopped pulling before I did. So yeah, let's get this thing rigged up and we'll keep working at it. Well, just in case it isn't immediately obvious what's happening here, what I'm doing is I've got two trees out here that I'm switching between. I've got this one here and then one over there, and that's pulling the top of this tree back and forth, and I'm pulling on it hard enough that it's coming up, you know, 6 or 8 feet off the ground. And I'm hearing loud pops and creaks. The whole thing is twisted, so I know I'm making some progress. But the 18,000 pound winch in my truck is really obviously not sufficient for this, and my rigging's not really sufficient for logging. This is not really the right tool. This is, you know, vehicle recovery stuff. But I think I'm gonna get it. I think maybe 2 or 3 more pulls back and forth, this thing is gonna come down today. So we'll just keep moving it back and forth, and hopefully it comes down soon. Well, finally, you can see it peeled that, all those fibers, all that bark, those 15 feet of that, it peeled back off of that trunk. I would say we are still not safe here, because this entire tree is now being balanced on all these limbs right here, but I believe I can throw a line over the top of that and grab a hold of it and pull it back that direction, and essentially kind of roll it and pivot it and get it down on the ground. Well, not safe, but safer. of cleanup has begun. Well, not day. I'll probably work out here for about an hour, but making some good progress here. Yeah, the place where this thing was rotten, the top of it broke out, you know, probably 20 years ago. That was this top. And then a branch continued to grow, you know, as the main trunk of the tree continued to grow right there in the where the two of them met. That whole area was just rotten. It was full of termites and dirt and everything else. So that was the weak point of the tree. Got a widowmaker right there, this thing. I'm gonna have to try and get that out of there before I do any more. Another one right here. But I'm gonna have to fall this tree, and it's over 4 feet in diameter at the bottom there. So that's gonna be a tricky one, but I think I can drop it right into this spot right there. But that'll be a few days down the road. For now, I got to keep hauling branches and feeding my slash pile. Well, I've got my truck's winch rigged up to an anchor point off in the direction that I want this alder tree to fall. And then I shinnied a little ways up the alder tree, put a strap on there. It's pretty rotten. I can actually see some big holes all the way up there. I'm actually a little worried about getting anywhere near it with the saw, but I feel like I want to do at least a little bit of a relief cut on it so that it wants to fall in the right direction. I don't know, I might just be able to pull on it with a winch. It's so rotten there, it may go, but yeah, I'll make a couple of cuts on it with the saw and just pick a safe place to run in case it starts moving. little tiny bit of good wood there. That was my hinge. Well, it fell right where I wanted. That was good. All right, time to de-rig this one. Rig up that mess. Within a couple of feet of it, but I don't think it even touched it. Well, it doesn't get much closer than that. Didn't touch the shop at all, I guess, unless you count this. Essentially not at all. I was actually aiming a couple feet more this way. I'm not complaining. Doesn't get much better than that. All right, time to fire up my little saw, light up that berm pile. Well, we're getting there. That is going to be some firewood. Spruce is not my favorite. Burns fine. It's just a real pain to split. But all these limbs will actually make great firewood. The limbs almost burn better than the trunk does. They're all full of pitch and tight grain. This is a pretty big tree. I guess I'll put a tape on it, probably about 3 feet. My 32-inch bar wouldn't go all the way through it, so my hinge looks okay. I'm sure someone will critique it, but that's all right. Oh. Well, guys, thanks for following along on this one. It's been quite a bit of work, but everything's safely on the ground. Got a bit of work ahead of me turning this big old spruce tree into some firewood. We'll catch you guys on the next video.